The Middle East awoke to a grim reality on August 1, 2024. Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, lay dead. He was assassinated in Tehran, a targeted strike that sent shockwaves across the region. Just hours prior, Fuad Shukr, a high-ranking Hezbollah commander, met a similar fate in Beirut. These assassinations, widely attributed to Israel, ignited a firestorm of reactions. The world watched with bated breath. Would this be the catalyst for a wider conflict? Iran vowed swift and devastating retaliation. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas teetered on the brink of collapse. Mediators scrambled to salvage the situation. The assassinations cast a long shadow. Haniyeh's death left a void, a vacuum of power with the potential to suck the region into further chaos. Shukr's assassination further inflamed the situation. The world held its breath, bracing for the inevitable fallout. The international community reacted to the assassinations with condemnation and concern. The United States urged restraint, emphasizing the need for de-escalation. European leaders called for dialogue and a return to diplomacy. The United Nations condemned the violence and called for an immediate cessation of hostilities. Despite widespread condemnation, the response from the Islamic world was mixed. The attack on a Druze village in the Golan Heights received scant attention from the international media. The Druze, caught in the crossfire, found their plight largely ignored by the global community. Their suffering is a stark reminder of the human cost of geopolitical games. The attack on the Druze village, while overshadowed by the assassinations of Haniyeh and Shukr, raised troubling questions about the selective outrage that often characterizes reactions to violence in the Middle East. The Druze, despite their historical loyalty to Israel, found themselves the target of aggression. Their pleas for help met with indifference from some quarters. This deafening silence spoke volumes about the complex and often contradictory nature of allegiances in the region. The incident exposed a disturbing trend, the tendency to overlook or downplay violence against certain groups based on their religious or ethnic background. This selective outrage undermines the very notion of universal human rights. It creates a hierarchy of victims, where some lives are deemed more worthy of mourning than others. The attack on the Druze village served as a stark reminder of the dangers of selective outrage. It underscored the need for a more principled and consistent approach to addressing violence and injustice, regardless of the victim's identity. The international community must move beyond the politics of convenience and embrace a more inclusive and equitable approach to conflict resolution. Section 4. The West's internal struggle. While the Middle East grappled with the immediate fallout from the assassinations, a different kind of conflict was brewing in the West. The incident ignited a fierce debate about the role of leftist ideology in shaping perceptions of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Critics, many on the right, accused leftists of harboring a double standard, one that excused or even glorified violence committed by certain groups while vehemently condemning others. This debate, often contentious and emotionally charged, exposed the deep divisions within Western societies regarding the Middle East. At the heart of the controversy lay the issue of terrorism. Critics argued that leftists were too quick to rationalize or contextualize acts of violence committed by groups they perceived as fighting against oppression. This, they contended, created a moral equivalence between the actions of state actors and non-state actors, blurring the lines between legitimate self-defense and terrorism. The debate, while ostensibly about the Middle East, reflected a broader struggle within Western societies, a clash between competing narratives about identity, power, and justice. It exposed the fault lines within these societies, highlighting the challenges of maintaining cohesion and unity in an increasingly polarized world.
The online world was abuzz with the recent clash between Moist Critical, a popular YouTuber, and Sneeko, a controversial internet personality. This debate wasn't just about personal differences. It was a microcosm of a larger cultural conflict playing out on social media platforms. Moist Critical criticized Sneeko for what he saw as irresponsible and inflammatory rhetoric, accusing him of supporting the marriage of underage teens. Sneeko, on the other hand, argued that he was simply speaking his truth and challenging the status quo, which seems predatory and displays the need for challenging the beliefs of the Muslim community. The back and forth between the two highlighted the power and pitfalls of social media as a battleground for ideological disputes. It also underscored the influence that online personalities can wield in shaping public opinion, for better or worse. Moist Critical is not retiring from streaming or YouTube. He is just stepping back his online presence by taking a hiatus from his and Jackson Clark's podcast.
In Venezuela, the streets were filled with the sounds of protest as citizens voiced their discontent with President Maduro's regime. As Maduro is attempting to steal another election, the situation in Venezuela, while unique in its own right, mirrored the broader struggles seen in other parts of the world. Protesters demanded change, decrying the government's corruption, economic mismanagement, and human rights abuses. This goes to show that socialist regimes are not as utopian as we are made to believe by the socialist groups in the United States. These groups in the US are naive, and Venezuela is a prime example of what these groups intend to do to the US. It is almost like teens and college students in the US are being misled by foreign entities that intend to destroy the US from the inside. The turmoil in Venezuela served as a stark reminder of the fragility of political systems and the lengths to which people will go to fight for their rights and freedoms. It was a microcosm of the broader global struggle for justice and democracy, highlighting the interconnectedness of these movements and the shared aspirations of people worldwide.